There we go. Okay. Hi.
Hello, Steve. How are
How you
you?
doing? Yeah,
Fine,
pretty
thank
good.
you.
Yes. How you doing?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much
Okay,
for your
great.
time. It's an honor to
Pleasure.
have you
Pleasure.
on
Pleasure.
O
Pleasure.
Sonho de Rock and Roll.
Pleasure.
I thought we could do this interview in Portuguese. What do you think about that?
Well, you can try, but it's been a while. It's my Portuguese is mais ou menos.
Okay, more seriously, I know that you've just come from a doctor's appointment. Is everything okay
Yes.
with your health?
Yeah, everything is fine. Everything is fine. I had some leg things, sciatica, you know, but it's not a big deal. It's okay. So we're back anyway.
Perfect. On November 10th, you'll be back in Portugal once again, this time to
Yes.
play in Lisbon as part of the Genesis Great Slam Highlights and Solo Tour. What can Portuguese fans expect from this concert?
Well, the first half of the show is new material. The second half of the show is the Genesis stuff from Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and other things. Selling England by the Pound, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, one or two other things, and yeah, we just played the Albert Hall here in the Royal Albert Hall, which was a great gig, and filmed it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that back. It happened to be a really good gig with guests on the show as well. It's been going very well. The band are very good. The band are very tight. The music is exceptionally good.
And you know
Uh,
each other very well.
yes, we know each other very well, and audiences have been amazingly good for this stuff. So yeah, it's been terrific.
Since you started your solo career, this will be the fifth time you come to Portugal. But the
Yeah.
first time it was in 1975. I'm pretty sure that you remember that for two
Yes,
concerts in Cascais with Genesis
yes,
presenting precisely the album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I,
yes,
I was too young at the time, but I know those were
yes.
crazy times. What memories do you have of those concerts?
Well, the when I say the concert was oversold, it was packed. There were bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies, and human,
Gunshots outside.
human pyramids that were swaying around, and people getting hurt, and gunshots going off, and vehicles being overturned, and it was crazy. It was for the band. We didn't know what were firecrackers and what were gunshots. So, I went on stage and I just kept my head down, hoping that if it was gunshots, they were going to miss me. That
Well, it
was,
was it were the days after the revolution. So
yes, it was the same
mhm.
time as all of that. So, and we were staying in the same hotel that the government had been staying in the night before in Cascais. So, yeah, it was an interesting time, but it was kind of crazy. And then when we tried to leave the following day, the flight takeoff was aborted, and the plane skidded
Wow,
across the grass, and it seemed to go on forever. We were convinced that that was it, all over.
the last concert.
Yeah, it could have been the last one, but somehow I managed to keep going for another 50 years.
Are you aware that almost 50 years later, those two concerts are still iconic as they were the first major rock concerts in Portugal?
I believe that was the case, yes. I think, yeah, I realize it's very important. So in a way, I'm bringing back 9 songs from that show. Um, I'm not doing it in its entirety, because if you do Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in its entirety, it becomes the whole show. And I'm anxious to bring other things. It's a 3-hour show. We have many other things as well. But the main focus, I think, is on that, or on those songs from that time. It still sounds very, very beautiful and very powerful. So it's something immensely complex and yet personal, and it's the kind of music that I think people don't really write anymore because it's crossover material. Whereas now I think people tend to write specifically in one genre or another. But what we were doing instinctively was working pan-genre, and the pan-genre approach has been something that has driven me even before I was with Genesis, to be able to originally sketch in a number of styles. And these days, of course, to sometimes do a full portrait in separate styles. So I've sometimes worked with orchestras. I've worked with jazz people. I've worked with classical people. I respect every style. I love all kinds of music, and I've made all kinds of albums. But the latest one, of course, the one you have behind you, the Circus and the Nightwhale,
Yes.
combines a lot of different styles within it.
On this tour, like in others before, you are performing some of the Genesis greats. How do you select the Genesis songs you play live? Is it the ones you like most, the ones the fans love most? How does it work?
I choose what I think are the best songs. It's not entirely a personal choice. It's fans telling me what they like the best of an era when Peter Gabriel was the lead singer. And for a short while, 3 albums that I did when Phil Collins became the lead singer. I try to do things that are great songs that people can sing along with if they like. But then there's also this idea of the devil is in the detail, complexity of songs. I like music that has the power of surprise. And I think that complexity should not be avoided, but it shouldn't be indulged in for its own sake. It's a bit like technique. You can do songs that are all full of dazzling technique. But for me, to evaluate a song, I would say it has to be emotionally overwhelming. It has to have great instrumental moments as well, so that it's a hybrid of everything, which was from instinctive 1960s music through to the more reserved or through composed aspects of 1970s music, where things were more tightly arranged. So I'm a fan of Bach. I'm a fan of
one
Hendrix.
of the most complex music ever.
Yes, and I've recorded several. Actually, I've recorded 7 Bach pieces in my time. I've recorded the work of Eric Satie as well, French minimalist, impressionist. I've worked with people from all over the world, and I realized they all bring something different to the plot. It's so important to have music that is heartfelt as well. I think, I only play the music that I truly believe in, not necessarily the music that was most successful that I ever did. I could do a series of hit singles. That's what most people do. But I never chose the obvious path. I prefer to do things that I think are great, eloquent or elegant constructions that also communicate to an audience. I don't want to play down to an audience. The idea of doing stuff, because the audience isn't intelligent enough. It can't just be based on a hand clap. I think there's an audience out there that are discerning that will listen to all sorts of great music from any era. And I hope that this concert that I do, it fits the bill of things that will be interesting, I think, for musicians of any era, and composers as well.
If you had to choose the best Genesis songs from the 6 albums you played on, which one would it be?
Well, I do one of them live. My favorite Genesis song of all time is Dancing with the Moonlit Night. I think that from Selling Them by the Pound, the opening track. We play that.
Are you playing that music?
Yes. Yeah, okay. we play that. The reason why is because it goes through so many changes. You've got something which is hymn-like, a cappella at the beginning, with this idea of appealing to citizens of hope and glory, the music of Elgar, all of that, land of hope and glory, the whole British thing. But then it goes through so many changes. I like to think at that time we were giving Mahavishnu Orchestra a run for their money. Stuff that was difficult to play and blindingly fast. That was part of it. So the idea that a song might contain all these different elements, like scenes from a film that change. I didn't want music to be concrete, fixed in one place. I wanted it to be an amalgam of so many different styles and schools of thought. So that's what drives me even now.
And what do you consider to be your best solo? Do you agree with the many fans who say it's Firth Fifth?
Firth Fifth. I think that's the most famous Genesis guitar solo. I think it's a beautiful melody. I do enjoy playing it. It's I think I have many personal favorites, but that one is iconic. It's indispensable, I think, for someone who's got true love of Genesis. But, you know, I know that Tony Banks is still proud of it.
Of course.
You know, there are those classical pianists who struggle to get the intro right on piano because it's technically demanding, but beautifully written. And so you have something for the keyboard players, you have something for the guitarists as well, the lovers of each of these things. So it's a very uplifting song, I think, with a beautiful melody. And I think we do a version of it that's really heartfelt and really good.
So with the best solo and the best song in the same album, do you consider Selling England by the Pound as the best album from Genesis?
Well, it's one that drew the interest of John Lennon. At that time when we were struggling.
Beatles' son, Genesis, Beatles' son, no?
Yeah, that's what he said. He said that we were true sons of the Beatles. And he started to get all of the albums sent over to him in New York. And funnily enough, his son, Sean, is a follower as well. He's still following. So there must have been some connection there. I've never met Sean. I would like to. I did meet Julian a couple of times. Because I met Paul McCartney. I didn't get to meet John Lennon. But of course, you know, we're talking about the greatest writers of our generation, with extraordinary songs that managed to engage people, from Frank Sinatra to so many, to Bob Dylan, bridging not just one generation gap, but so many. And George Martin, of course, who I think was so influential with those orchestral arrangements that were so imaginative and groundbreaking, showing that different schools of thought can come to bear on something, and if you get the detail right, you get something exquisite, like Eleanor Rigby or I Am the Walrus. You get superb arrangements with a wide range of instruments that not necessarily are rock instruments, but using brass, using strings, using so many other things in a very surprising, but in a storytelling kind of way. I've worked with orchestras, and I'm due to work with orchestras again in the future. I had an offer from a really well-known British orchestra when we were playing in Manchester, and they said they wanted to work with me, and I thought
perfect.
It was two orchestras, and I've yet to fulfill all of that. You know, how to get that right. You know, it's an amazing thing. But you know, I loved certain people. The Beatles used orchestra wonderfully well. Procol Harum used orchestra wonderfully well, and I try and take the Genesis music forward. You know, a lot of that stuff which was classical in spirit, to do enlargements, not just revisits, but to enlarge and to give it the respect that I think that it's due. A kind of restitution, I think, a restoration and a restitution, but also to enlarge, to take it further. And one of the pieces, for instance, on Lamb Lies Down on Broadway was influenced by film music. Fly on a Windshield.
Okay.
Was influenced by film music, influenced by the music of Miklos Rozsa, writing Hollywood film scores. And so one day I will do that with an orchestra. It's important that I do it with, you know, to orchestrate it to the level of. There I was today listening to Ravel. You know, I mean, people who can really orchestrate. I've worked with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. I've worked with the Wuppertal Orchestra in Germany. I've worked with the Heart of England Orchestra. I've worked with orchestra in Rochester in the United States. So 4 different orchestras I've worked with, sometimes live, sometimes on record. And I'm still going. I'm still doing this. You know, for me, it's a campaign to say there's nothing that's unhip about orchestral players who've devoted their lives to a superior level of technique in order to you know, do the best music imaginable. So we try and bring together the instinctive musicians and the ones who are schooled, the ones who've been disciplined, and the ones who just did whatever they liked and let it all hang out. But they've all got something to offer. You know, Jimi Hendrix has got something to offer. Handel has got something to offer. And at one point, they both lived in the same house, not at the same time, but this house in London, where 200 years apart, this is a building that contains, or the walls contain the echoes of some of the music that we still listen to today.
Let me tell you just one thing to differ from you. My favorite one is the musical box. Is one of the few songs that I can cry when I listen to it.
Okay. I'm glad you like that one. Brian May likes that one as well.
Yeah, because you play every sound of your guitar is like it come from your gut. It's something. Well, I can't explain.
It's got some nice guitar solos on it. It's got some guitar solos on it that are memorable. In fact, there are 3 different guitar solos on it. One very, very quiet, one loud, and then right at the end, the harmony guitars right at the end. And I know that Brian said he liked that very much when I first met him, Brian May. And I've recorded some stuff with Brian, At one point, we did some stuff in the 1980s together, which has just been re-released. So I'm very pleased about that on Feedback 86.
Since you are talking about Brian, you have inspired many guitar players across generations, but like any musician, you must have had your own influences. Which guitarists did you admire when you joined Genesis in 1970?
Oh my God, there were masses. I mentioned Andres Segovia in the world of classical music. That was hugely important. I enjoyed so many British guitarists, Eric Clapton, Peter Green, Jeff Beck,
Okay.
American guitar, Mike Bloomfield.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so many.
And
There are
today,
so many. And today,
who are
I like.
the guitarists you most appreciate?
Okay, I enjoy very much. Well, it's my friend Brian May, and
Okay.
also
Steve Rothery, I assume, since you are
Steve Rothery. Yes, Steve Rothery is a fine guitarist. Steve Howe and I have worked together as well.
in GTR.
Yes, great player, Steve. There are others. Pat Metheny is a great player. Joe Bonamassa. I wanted to include some American guitarists in there. You know, really, really, very, very, very good. At one time, I think that the British had all the best rock guitarists, and then as soon as Jimi Hendrix arrived, the balance started to shift. But you know, Mike Bloomfield was brilliant. I saw him in 1966, and I saw him with Paul Butterfield, and he was really, really great. The night I saw him, everybody was on fire. That was something special I will never forget.
This tour isn't just to celebrate the 50th anniversary of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. It is also the opportunity to present your new album released in February, The Circus and the Nightwhale. The first part of the tour took up almost all of October. How have the fans reacted to the new tracks performed live?
Yeah, we performed 3 tracks from the new one. Sometimes I only play a track from an album, but all the tracks on that album, the whole album has been very well received. It's probably sold the best of all the albums I've ever done and charted in so many places. And I don't know why I'm having this level of success at my age, but there's something about it that seems to work for people. So yeah, I'm very pleased, and it works very well live. The 3 tracks we do from it, they work very well live. It's better than good, I think.
You've said that this is an autobiographical album with some surreal elements, and that you revisit some childhood memories, like the time when you used to listen to BBC Radio. Why did you decide to make an autobiographical work at this stage?
Well, I did 2 tracks, first of all, quite apart. One was a love song called Wherever You Are, and it was dedicated to my wife, really. I said, oh, this track is for you. It's about us. And then I did another one called Get Me Out, which was all about frustrations and wanting to break out of claustrophobic situations. They were very different to each other, but they were both rock. And they were both very personal. And my wife, Jo, said to me, why don't you make the whole album autobiographical, make it all personal? So it's a bit like doing a self-commission to start in 1950 when I was born. So it starts off with snippets of radio from the year 1950. This is what it sounded like. The Ovaltinis, the Alvarli Dell, the way music sounded, Pathé News, the newsreel, stuff from the BBC, Listen with Mother. These are all very old shows that the British people would recognize. So, in other words, you start with this sort of London fog of a collage to describe exactly what the world sounded like, and then a steam train arrives, because they were all steam trains when I was
the baby.
When I was a baby. They were all steam trains. And for the next 10 years, they were all going to be steam trains, and then that sets the pace for an incoming string orchestra, and then we get a rock band. So you get all these things at the beginning that you think, where's it going? What's happening next? Where's it going? But so I think that kind of procession through time is one of the things that drew people to it. So you don't really get personal music until the song is about 1 minute in. You get anything but rock and roll.
I assume that you still believe that progressive rock fans don't like love songs, but this album does have a few. Do you feel that the album is influenced not just by your 74 years of life, but also by the love story you've been living for over a decade with your wife, Jo?
Yes, I think that I think it depends how a love song is presented. I think that after having had many conversations with many people, including Jo, to discern what people like from music, or what a progressive audience likes, is they don't just want a song, they want a journey, they want an odyssey, they want a story. So I think if you give it context, you can include love, peace, war, anything you like, humor, many things. Nothing should be off limits for music that's truly progressive or pan-genre. Unfortunately, we're stuck with this term prog, and it's not very poetic. It doesn't sound as good as jazz or pop. It doesn't have the snappy thing.
Not at all.
It sounds like dog. It doesn't have music within it, and yet progressive, of course, is the thing that we're looking for. It depends on your definition. What is something that is progressive? I like to think that it's music that morphs and changes and surprises, and can be as quiet as a pin dropping, or it can be a roar. And that's, again, what I do live, particularly when I play a track like Shadow of the Hierophant, where it's a long, slow crescendo. Yes, that's right. It's a long, slow crescendo. It works very well live. It works better live than it ever can work on record.
Is there a possibility that this could be your last studio album?
This Circus from the Nightwhale?
That's right, yes.
I don't think so, no. I think there will be more in future. We have to accept...
So you are still full of energy?
I'm still full of energy, and, I do this all because of by the grace of God, I get to do it. Whether you believe in a deity or fatalist, whatever you are, yes, I think I pray daily to the God of music. That's for sure.
But have you ever considered retiring and ending your career, or are you one of those who believe that an artist's career never really ends?
It's a very good. I think that it never really ends, and it never really starts, because I remember Andres Segovia said something about, when did you first become a musician? He said, long before I was born. It's a great quote. Long before I was born. I don't know what was going on, but I suspect music may have been in there. And after I die, I expect that music may carry on in some form or another if I'm given the chance. So we have to believe in continued existence. The form changes, of course.
But besides the collaborations of the orchestras that you spoke earlier,
Yeah.
do you have any other collaborations planned for the near future?
I've been working on something with Steve Rothery of Marillion.
Yeah.
He and I have been working on something. I don't know when it will be finished because there are a number of people involved with this, and we fit it around whatever else we're doing. So it's, shifting sounds. I don't know when that will be ready, but that's an interesting project. I have some live stuff that'll be released. Some of it in front of a huge audience, some of it in front of a small audience. But at some point, the Royal Albert Hall show will be released, and then there's another one from a small venue where the music is infinitely more fragile in front of an intimate audience.
Well, the Lisbon concert is just around the corner.
Yes.
What message would you like to leave for your Portuguese fans?
Well, I'm looking forward.
Is it too much to ask you to say it in Portuguese?
Oh,
No, if
yes.
if it's risky, you can say it in English.
I
No
can
problem.
make a complete balls up of it.
You can mix. You can mix.
Yeah, I know. Estou muito feliz, yes, visitar mais uma vez. Excuse the Carioca accent, but mais uma vez, Portugal. It will be a homecoming. It'll be very muito importante. I don't know the word. One Italiano mixed with Portuguese. Here we are.
Steve, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a great pleasure to have you on our radio show. I wish you a safe trip to Portugal. See you in Lisbon.
Okay, fantastic.